Okay, so we're going to be looking at a temperament evaluation on B, who is a 10-week-old singleton PBGV puppy. This is a test that would normally be best on a puppy just a little bit younger. The timing just didn't quite work out. So normally I would do this between 7 and 8 weeks. B is a little bit older than that. This is a room where she's never been before, and the tester is someone unfamiliar to her. She's met Kim a couple times, but not really spent a lot of time with her. Initially, we're just going to put her in the pen with some novel objects and a new person for about a minute. If she greets the person will greet back and then just stand up and ignore her to encourage her to check out the pen. The other things we have in here, there's a bully stick on the other side of the fence that is a smell distraction, so she spends a little time there. The stuffed toy that she's sniffing will eventually start singing and dancing to her. There's a tarp on the ground. We have a balance disc, and then there's a metal grate. So just some unusual surfaces under her feet, basically. And we're just going to give her a minute to check out the space. She's doing a little sniffing, a little bit of exploring. At the end of the minute, Kim's going to move to one side of the pen to see if she follows, which B noticed her move but didn't really follow. She's kind of interested in checking things out right now. She stands there for 15 seconds. Towards the end, B does come and check her out. Now she's going to walk to the other side of the pen for 15 seconds. This time, B is a little more engaged, wants to greet her, would probably like a little more interaction than she's getting right now because we basically just pet the puppy and then kind of ignore them for the rest of the time. She's getting a little bit annoyed by that fact. All right, so now we're going to go to each of the items. Kim doesn't have any food or toys or anything with her. She's just going to ask B, hey, can you check this thing out with me? And she's pretty willing to do that, not really afraid of the things. Okay, now the dog, you're probably not going to be able to hear the singing because I'm doing voiceover, but he plays music and his ears will start flapping and he's a little weird. You can see the ears flapping a little bit there. So B's tail stays up, but she backs off a little bit. She's not totally sure this is a great idea. With some support from Kim, she's willing to come a little closer, but she would still rather keep a little bit of space. She's had a lot of toys, but none of them ever sang to her and started dancing before. I do think for a lot of puppies, the flapping ears weirds them out more than the singing. But she recovers pretty quickly, and she's still willing to go and do our last item there. And she's sniffing the bully stick a little bit again. Okay, so now we're going to do another round. This time, though, Kim does have food in her hand, and she'll give B a little treat after each object. So this is a little bit of a test of, are you more willing to engage when I have food than when I don't, which can be an indication that a puppy maybe isn't super biddable but is food motivated. In this case, B was already pretty willing to engage. She's actually a little calmer and quieter, I think, with food, probably focusing on the food a little bit more than the stuff under her feet. She also has puppy teeth and doesn't chew super fast, so you have some delays there while she's chewing up the treats. A lot of times if you do this with 7 or 8 week old puppies, they're not ready to take the food yet in this kind of setting. They just sort of follow it. Okay, so now we have our scary singing dog. With the food, she's willing to come closer, which is good to an extent, but you do have to be careful. If you have a puppy that's really seriously worried, which she really wasn't, she was more just mildly concerned, you don't always want to lure them in closer with food to something they're afraid of, though, because a lot of times they don't realize what they're doing, and then all of a sudden either the food runs out or they notice they're in a scary situation, and sometimes you can get a pretty bad reaction from a puppy that way. In this case, she was not all that worried, and she's definitely less worried when there's food involved. And then we'll just come over and check out our last item. She's pretty comfortable walking on different surfaces, so none of that's a real big deal to her. And this is a puppy who's been raised in a pretty highly enriched environment with a lot of surfaces. But even in puppies that haven't, or sometimes puppies that have but are still concerned, you can still see behavioral differences if they like things under their feet or don't care about things under their feet versus puppies that worry about it. Okay, so we moved everything off to the side, and she kind of followed and got underfoot, which is normal. Now, as soon as Kim can catch her, she's going to hold her in her arms for a minute upside down, which is a position that puppies don't love, and you can see B is like not really into this. But she tolerates it. She's kind of tense. She's not really struggling, but she would probably rather be someplace else. We're going to maintain this for 15 seconds and then set her down on the ground. And Kim will call her a couple times. And what we're pretty much looking at is, do you forgive the tester and still want to engage with her, which B pretty much does, um, or do you head for the hills and not want anything to do with the person then? The next thing that we'll look at is a reaction to a neutral dog. So we're going to use a dog that's not a dog from my household. This is a 2-year-old mixed breed dog who has really good dog social skills, is very trustworthy with puppies, has been around a lot of dogs. And what we're pretty much looking at is the puppy appropriate? How rude are they? Do they rush at the dog's face, or do they go off to the side a little bit more? Do they read social cues? Are they completely terrified by the presence of an adult dog that's not their mother? These are the sort of things that we're looking for. Ideally, I do like to use a different breed or at least a different color than Mom for this, if at all possible. Because B was a singleton, she has been around dogs outside of our household quite a bit already because I really wanted her to have as much of a dog-to-dog socialization experience as possible. So she approaches Ella to the face but off to the side. She's pretty polite. When she starts to be rude, Ella turns away from her and kind of pushes her back to the side, which is really a more appropriate way for a puppy to greet an adult dog. She checks to see if there's any milk, which is kind of normal. She's going to be disappointed there. Getting a little bit pushy again, but nothing too major. And that was about 30 seconds, which is about what you need to see. If a puppy is completely terrified, I would stop this sooner. And you have to very carefully choose the adult dog that you use for this kind of testing. Okay, next thing that we're looking at is retrieve. For a lot of working dog programs, the retrieve is a deal breaker characteristic in a puppy of this age. It's also something you will almost never see in a PBGV puppy of this age. Then again, it's not a breed that most working dog programs would have much interest in. So initially B chased and then got a little bit silly. The chase part of a retrieve I would expect a hound puppy to have because hounds like to chase stuff. This time we're holding back, so the toy wasn't moving anymore. She actually has a little more interest this time, though. She does pick it up. She's not necessarily planning to retrieve it, but she is willing to pick it up and carry it, which is a nice thing to see in a PBGV puppy because a lot of times they don't have any interest really at all. Next thing we're looking at is tug. I would expect most PBGV puppies to chase a moving toy because, again, prey drive is pretty strong in this breed. B does tend to like to tug pretty strongly. She's got a little more grip. Singleton puppies aren't necessarily known for their bite inhibition, so that might be part of it because when she was getting bitey, we did a lot of tug play to get her teeth onto her toys and not our flesh. But she does have really nice tug drive, so I'm hoping that will carry over into her agility career. Now we're going back to looking at social skills a little bit. Kim's going to lure her a couple steps, remind her that there might be food involved, and then just ignore her for 15 seconds. A puppy that's more social and a little more patient will hang out. 15 seconds is a long time to a baby puppy. It doesn't feel like that long, but it kind of is. But you can see Bee's sort of sitting there saying, hey, I'm really cute. Have you forgotten I'm really cute and I'm down here? So she stays pretty engaged the whole time there. Now we get into some of our scarier test things. We're going to pop an umbrella. If you watch closely, there was a little tiny startle there. But then we set it down for the puppy to check out. And she is pretty cool about it. She actually climbs into the umbrella here. So the movement under her feet doesn't worry her, and she's clearly not too worried about the pop. Then we're going to shoo her off and do this one more time. The scary things a lot of times we'll do twice to see if they're better or worse the second time. Again, very tiny startle, I think a little bit less than the first time. She checks it out again, but she knows what it is now, so she's not super interested in it really. Give her about 15 seconds to check it out, and then we're going to go ahead and pull that out of here. Okay, now Kim's going to distract her, and Chrissy's going to come around and make a noise. It's a can with some pennies in it, so it is a little bit loud. Again, itty bitty startle, it's a little bit hard to see there, but she immediately goes and checks it out and is not particularly worried about it, um, which is nice to see. Okay, so that concludes the temperament part of this. Where then I am going to show pictures of structure from when B was 8 weeks old, because that's really a better time to look at structure than 10 weeks. Just to talk a little bit about what I see there. I like her overall proportions a lot. She's got nice length of leg, looks like a nice coat, a bit more angulation than I'm used to seeing at this age. Her front might be a touch wide, but it's a little bit hard to say that for sure again at this age as puppies are still growing. Overall, if Ginny was only going to give me one puppy, I'm pretty happy with what I've got here. I think I got really lucky in that regard. So I hope you enjoy watching this video. If you have questions, I'm always happy to answer them. You're always seeing puppies at one moment in time when you do temperament evaluations. Things can change. How they're raised definitely does make a difference. Sometimes you just catch a puppy on a bad day. But what this does give you is tendencies. A lot of times you're not going to make or break your decisions, but if you're trying to decide if a particular puppy is suitable for maybe a performance home or a therapy dog home, something like that, where somebody has very specific things in mind, I do think it can be helpful to look at some of these characteristics, especially confidence and sociability. If I'm choosing a PBGV puppy for any kind of performance thing, sociability I think is really my number one. I don't care how confident they are and how many X pens they can climb out of or how good their nose is. If they're not interested in working with a human, it's going to be very hard to have a lot of success in performance events. So that's something I take pretty seriously when I'm looking at puppies. Again, it's a moment in time. It's just one puppy. You don't have the ability to see a whole litter because in this case, one puppy was the whole litter. But I do think this can give you some interesting information sometimes.